Hi, I'm Valerie Englehart, and in this video I am going to be painting a surreal portrait of a bearded iris. So yep, I'm going with a pun today. I am mixing up a bearded iris flower with a bearded man, and I'm just having fun with it. So I'm starting with a 1-inch flat brush, and I'm doing that to carve in my darkest values. I'm working on a size 11 by 14 cold press Arteza Professional watercolor paper. And I like it because this is a more affordable paper, but it's still a pretty good quality. I'm working flat as opposed to my usual angle just because I'm working with a loose piece of paper, and so if I put it at an angle without any supporting board, it will curve and buckle, which is not what I want. So let's talk about that color, shall we? I love a good purple, and this is Rockwell Art Royal Purple. And I like that it's warmer, it's got like some pink undertones. And even though the plan was to go with a complementary color scheme of the purple and then the pop of yellow for the bearded iris, I wanted to add some blue. Palaiba Diamond Blue is my favorite color. Well, there are a few colors I say that about, but definitely Palaiba Diamond Blue. If I ever need a blue, I'm reaching for it. So even though I was carving the shapes, not all shapes need to be dark. And this is the first wash. By the time I'm done with what is the quote-unquote first wash, I basically have a finished painting where I just needed to wait for it to dry to put in some of my more defined shapes. Because I'm painting without a sketch, I am just winging it. Looking at the shapes in my reference photo, kind of picking out where they're gonna go on the paper, and just diving in. And I want hard edges, I want soft edges, lost, found. I want things to look dreamy and ethereal. And I also want to be careful in that I like to paint negatively, so that's where you paint around your subject. But I don't want a cutout look. I don't want this floating flower head in Neverland. So as I'm painting, I had to strategically think where I wanted background. Where did I want the petal to be lighter than the background, and where I wanted a petal to be darker than the background. And with irises, I would never, I don't think, if asked, Val, what's your favorite flower? I don't think I'd answer iris. However, anytime I want to try a new technique or new paints, or I just want to have some fun, I always come back to an iris, and I think it's because of its fascinating shape. So I popped in some Daniel Smith cadmium yellow hue for that yellow spot on the flower. And I love a good complementary color scheme. Now I'm a loose painter. I am not really into details. You do have to take care of some details, otherwise it could just look like a loose mess and like you're not confident. But I am not somebody who's going to put in every single line and every single wrinkle and ripple. I am someone who is here's a big shape. Let's add some shades to it. And often I am just using clean water and pulling colors into other areas, even with that big brush. And I do recommend start with the biggest brush you think you can handle. And even then, maybe go one size higher. I did pull out some salt to start adding interest to my background. Unfortunately, I did not really get the timing right, so I didn't get the kind of salt patterns that I was hoping for. So much of watercolor is all about timing, but also knowing your pigments and your paper. The way that the salt works will work differently with different papers. The key is usually you don't want it too wet. You want to wait until like the shine has started to go away and then you add it. Luckily, I wasn't relying on those marks. The one nice thing about this paper in particular is it lifts pretty well. So anywhere where I have a hard edge and I decide that I don't want that hard edge, it's pretty easy to scrub it out. Now, with yellow, adding just yellow on yellow doesn't really darken anything, so I had to go into a different yellow. Quinacridone gold gave dimension to the yellow part of the iris. And then having that yellow in the bearded section, light is reflected. So the face had a lot of white going on, and I decided to put in a little bit of light, wash a yellow on some of the features to act as that reflected light, that reflected color. The difficult part about painting without a sketch is I do need to be careful of where my shapes are so that they're not going off the page if that's going to cause a problem. And I have a tendency to paint bigger than what I need to do. And thankfully, in this case, I managed to keep everything that needed to be in frame within the frame. And I wonder, when you paint, what are you listening to? You listening to music, an audiobook, podcast? I like to listen to funny YouTube videos. And usually they're talking about book reviews or pop culture phenomena, or lately I've really been into listening to reviews of webtoons. All right, so even though the painting is still wet, I'm going in with my size 8 round brush, and I'm going in with a stronger value of that blue. I really want to push the eye socket back, and blue is a great way to do that. And some of the blue hit the yellow in the cheek and began to bleed, and I love that. I love how with watercolor you do get those bleeds. And like I said, this paper lifts pretty well, so I began to lift area to signify like where an eyelid would be. So watercolor might get a bad rap for being unforgiving, but if you know your materials and you have a good quality paper, it just takes a lot of practice. You can change things, you can correct shapes. If something's not in the right spot, it is possible to move it. Sometimes you gotta be really creative about it. But isn't that the fun? Now at this point, while I was focusing on my values, I realized, oh, where I thought the nose wasn't making sense for where the eyes were placed. And so then I had to go really study the facial features. And I would use my brush to line up where does the corner of the eye meet a nose if I drew a line straight down. And so when you paint without a sketch, you are very dependent on shapes and lines that you just infer. And as much as I love when watercolor is wet, it all blends together, sometimes when there's something that's on your mind and you really want to fix it right now, but you can't, because if you try, you're actually going to create mud and mess it up. And then whenever you mess it up like that, you're calling more attention to it, which is the last thing you want to do. And I'm not a patient person. So watercolor is a wonderful way for me to practice patience. So I told you how I came up with the idea, but how did I get this reference? So you can do this with any pictures you want. I like to use the copyright-free or royalty-free site Unsplash. Unsplash is the one I go to most often. And I would type in man with beard and then find a model that I thought really worked for the pose I was going for. And then I would search for an iris. And then I would look for one that had the shapes and colors that I was looking for. And then I would bring those pictures into Procreate, use some of the tools to separate petals and separate the head, and then just sort of morphed it together. Might have been easier in Photoshop, and I do have Photoshop, but there's something nice about just sitting in my chair, by the window, on my tablet, planning out my next painting. And I haven't done a surreal portrait in quite a while, so this just felt good. In fact, I don't remember my last surreal portrait. These typically aren't things that collectors are looking to buy, at least in my area, and nor are they super marketable with licensing, and yet you need to give yourself time to explore these things. I might not have any sort of commercial success with this. In fact, I'm certain I won't. But that's not the point. I, more than anything, just wanted to paint this. I had an idea in my head and went, yeah, this is what I want to spend my time on. And hopefully you enjoy watching it. And I hope it inspires you to find your own photos and what inspires you and putting it together to make a combination that is unique. This is a great way to use reference images, but not just copy whatever the photographer took, but combine elements that speak to you and then colors that are the ones that light you up when they hit the page. And that's part of just what makes it so fun for me. And yeah, even at this point, I am still technically in the first wash. Isn't that incredible? So earlier I was talking about not wanting to do a complete cutout of the background. So I did need some background color on the left side there, but I decided to just have it around that petal, toward that cheek, but nowhere else. I wasn't going to put it in the upper left corner or the lower left corner, just in that kind of mid area. And I loved when I added the Palaiba Diamond Blue, how it kind of radiated out. Granulating colors are my favorite ones to work with. And both the purple and the blue are granulating colors. Because it just adds an extra element of unpredictability. So not only do I want to know what you think of this painting, are there any combinations that you want to try? Or any combinations you want to see me try? Because I gotta say, this one isn't the best instructional video, but I hope it inspires you. I hope it makes you want to go pick up your brushes and dream up your own mythical creatures, your own dreamy realities. And I would love to know what those are. Okay, I'm using a scrubber brush now. Well, not an actual scrubber brush. I was using a synthetic small filbert and scrubbed the ball of the nose just to give it more form, and because it was starting to look a little messy. I needed to be really careful. But luckily, you don't really have to you need to get the shapes right, but you don't need to be too particular as long as you get a shape that is recognizable. The brain will fill in the rest. We can tell there are eyes, a nose, a place for a mouth, and so our knowledge of a human face will be like, oh yeah, that's totally the nose. That being said though, I say this a lot, paint what you see, not what you think you see. And that really matters with proportions. Eyes in particular, because we place so much importance on eyes. They are often painted far too big. Now, if you're going for something dreamy, this is a man with petals growing out of his face, I don't think realism is our biggest concern. But if you do want to focus on realistic proportions, that's where that advice of paint what you see, not what you think you see. Really pay attention. Eyes are smaller than we typically assume they are. And often I find when I see beginner artists, noses are usually bigger than what are painted when you are just starting out. But really the eyes, really get those eyes right. Make sure you push them back. It seems kind of scary to add all that dark value. Also, the whites of the eyes, not white. So there wasn't a visible transition here, but we are on the second wash at this point. I managed to get the camera lined up exactly where it was prior, which is pretty cool. So I painted in the iris, but the eye iris, not the petals. And then after getting that purple color in, I dried my brush and I did a curved brush stroke to lift some of that pigment to give the eye kind of that rounded, glassy look. Give it a little more life. But really at this point, I'm just going around and fussing and pushing some values because after watercolor dries, it typically dries paler. And I think the biggest change is where I went up to that upper left petal and created the sense that it was folded in half by doing some negative painting. I really love to paint irises. Their shape is so cool. And I'm going crazy right now because there are so many colored irises growing in all of the neighbors' gardens right now. We've got pink ones, yellow ones, purple ones, purple ones, purple ones. And then the white ones with the purple on the edges. And yes, I said purple multiple times, but they are all different purples. Oh, and then like a maroon colored one. That one's really pretty too. All right, put in some lines near the eye. Kind of make it look like that petal is emerging from the side of the eye. I really like that. And since this is just me having fun, I do push some ideas here and there, and not all of them turn out okay. That's all right. Art's part of exploration. Here is example number 1. I grabbed a stencil. I wanted to add a little more like texture, but my scrubber brush, even though I made sure it was clean beforehand, I guess I didn't do a good enough job because when it scrubbed it, it almost added a blue sheen, and it just looked kind of strange. So I grabbed a different scrubber brush, tried scrubbing it more, but too late. That blue was staining. So what do? Well, first off, I found out that my littler brush was fine, so I went and did the same thing on the other side and actually got the result I wanted. Try again on the right and just did not work, which is fine, and there are things I could have done to fix it, but I felt that it would cause attention to go there in a way that I didn't want. That's not my focal point, and so I decided to just leave it alone. Once you scrub the paper, you have damaged it. And so if you go in and paint over it, the paint is not going to sit on it the way that it would do on the paper otherwise. And it will typically call out the area more. So I am calling out the area in a couple spots because I felt that the background was a little too plain, and I kind of wanted to do some fun things. I haven't used stencils in a while and went, why not? I have so many stencils, so I was like painstakingly going through all of them, trying to find ones that would work with my dreamy, ethereal vibe, but not look too childish or cartoony. All right, just another stencil and scrub-a-dub-dub. And then after I scrub, use a paper towel, press and lift, doing some to the background as well. Although it didn't really show up as much for the background. But that's okay. There's still a subtle change, and that's pretty cool too. And I don't know if you can hear it, my cat is screaming because he's never been fed a day in his life. At least that's what he'd have you believe. Don't overdo it with the stenciling. It is fun, and it can be a little addictive. Just like anything when you're making art, if it's fun and you just want to do more, oh, just a little more, oh, just a little more, and then before you know it, oh, it's too much. So have fun with stencils. Don't go overboard. It could give it too much of a crafted, I don't know, like a crafty look. More like you're doing arts and crafts than like a fine art painting. Then again, your art's your art. Do whatever you want. Show me I'm wrong. You know what? That'd be cool. Side note, I love that blend that happened at the very tippy top of that right petal where it meets the background, kind of separated to a pink. Ugh, I love watercolor. It does most of the work for me. All right, just signing it off. And here's the finished painting. So if you liked this video, press that like button and ring that bell because I make videos every Thursday. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye!